Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islam. In this week's program, we will conclude our special interview with former NBA superstar, Brother Kareem Abdul Jabar. Let us now join Dr. Nazir Khaja in the second part of that interview.
Talking about your children, you said you have 5 children. They're obviously going to schools. And how are you taking care of their Islamic educational needs is what I'm asking.
Well, taking care of their Islamic educational needs is a very difficult thing. You can't give them like a formal education every day, which would be the ideal thing. So I just, in my own way, try to, in my life and in the things that I do, I always take time to explain to my children why and what the moral basis for it is and how that affects their life. I've been surprised in my soon-to-be 14-year-old son, Amir. He had a cultural discussion at school, and Islam ended up being the topic of discussion one day, and they made some statements that were not exactly correct. They said that Islam started with the Prophet Muhammad. So Amir raised his hand and said Islam started with Adam. And then there was one other statement that they made that wasn't exactly correct. But he came home and told me about it, and that was really the first time that I realized that he had internalized all these things that I had told him, and that he'd been watching the things that I do, and that he had taken them to heart. And that's the best feeling I've had. I can remember in the past couple of years to understand that, you know, he does have a moral basis for his actions, and he sees things in that light. I was very thankful.
So obviously you agree that parents ought to be the role models to...
Parents have to be the role models. There is no other way. Parenting is a very difficult job. It's a hands-on job, and it needs adjusting every day. And for any parent, not just a Muslim parent.
So you actually, when you finish your day, you go home and you spend time with the kids and go over what they need. And
yes, I'm divorced, so I have my sons like half of the year. So when they're with me, we do all these things. We go to Eid prayers. We have discussions. I get some of the film and printed material that you guys publish, and I give it to them. They read it, and they have an idea of who they are.
Wonderful. So there isn't any time for them to, say, go to the mosque Sundays or Fridays, or does that happen occasionally? You said that
very rarely.
Very rarely.
Very rarely, because you know, their whole school schedule. And here in Southern California, the whole thing with the distances is a real problem.
Right.
Yeah, getting down to the Islamic Center is a problem for me. I live way on the west side of town.
Yes.
So I have to do it in other ways.
Yes. Now that your one phase of your life is over as far as basketball, what are your future endeavors? What are you involved in, and professionally, socially? What are the...
Well, right now I'm involved in movie production, basically. I have a production company, and I work with Laurel Film out of New York. We just recently acquired the rights to do Lena Horne's life as a made-for-TV movie. And I also do marketing, sports marketing type of things. And between those things and dealing with the kids at school, I'm very busy.
Yes, and then you're traveling also internationally. I mean, off and on, you probably get a whole lot of invitation. And talking of travel, you have traveled. You have gone to the Kaaba and
yes, I have.
In the past. You have not done Hajj yet, but...
I haven't done Hajj. I've done Umrah. I've never been there during Hajj. The last time we went was 1991, and we were there just 2 weeks before Hajj started. So I missed it, but I did get to make Umrah.
With your family or?
No, that was with a group of basketball players.
Really? Who
very interesting, very interesting trip, because three of the 3 of the basketball players that traveled with us became Muslim on the trip.
Wonderful.
Just out of the blue. You know, they had conversations with some gentlemen in the lobby of the hotel while they were eating for a couple of days, and they started to think about it, and it was an amazing
Who are these for our audiences? If we have interest to know who.
Oh, they weren't any well-known basketball players.
Yes.
Just some guys that we hired for the trip.
Yes.
But it was really interesting. In addition to that, the first day I went to Juma, we were in Tehran.
Mm-hmm.
First day I went to Juma, I noticed a number of American military men in their fatigues.
This is Tehran, Saudi Arabia.
Tehran,
Right.
Saudi Arabia,
Right, yes.
for the Desert Storm
Yes.
personnel.
What
there
were you
was-
doing there at that time?
We were there to do this basketball tour.
Oh, I see.
And I go to the masjid for Juma, and there's several guys in fatigues making
Right.
salat, and I'm like, what is this? And I talked to one of them, and during the time of the Desert Storm period, several hundred American military personnel accepted Islam. They had their names on file over in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
I was totally shocked by all that.
Yes. So when you did the Umrah, when you first time approached the Kaaba, can you share that, recapitulate that feeling?
Well, the first time I did Umrah was in the summer of 1971,
I see.
and that was an extraordinary experience because I'd never been to Saudi Arabia. I had no idea what the experience was going to be like, and it's something you never forget.
What actually happened? I mean, as you went to the Kaaba, was it during the daytime or?
Because I was American and they didn't know who I was, I had to go to the Qadi and get an okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so my wife and I went to the Qadi, and they questioned us and, let us proceed.
Yes.
We took a cab from Jeddah to Mecca,
Right.
and, we changed into Ihram, and we performed it, and it's like you really don't appreciate the effect it has on you until you go through it. On that recent trip in 1971 with the other brothers, after they pronounced Shahadat, we took them to Mecca so that they could perform Umrah. And after they came back, I remember, walking with them into the hotel, and they were like staring out, and you
Yes.
could see the thought process going on. It really affected them. And I've run into one of the brothers since then, Brother Jalil, and he's a policeman in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
He's still very much into the faith, and very happy man.
Oh, wonderful. Now, talking of Muslims and Islam in the United States, what do you think as a Muslim, or what do you think for the Muslims is the agenda in this country? I mean, there are several priorities. We are dealing with the whole issue of stereotyping. Do you have any?
Well, Muslims in this country are stereotyped in a way similar to IRA terrorists or people, criminals. We've had the unfortunate incident of the bombing of the World Trade Center, and people think that is an Islamic issue. It's not. It's an issue of political terrorism, which affects everyone. But someone has to be able to go out and speak on these issues that knows what they're talking about. And it will take concerned Muslims being actively involved in writing letters to newspapers and being very vocal with what is Islam and what isn't. The unfortunate thing is that in this country, people see all of the non-democratically elected strongmen, military strongmen, monarchs, what have you, that rule Islamic countries and think that is Islamic rule. Islamic rule really is not very prevalent in countries, in Muslim countries. They're run by dictators for the most part. So there's a great deal of education that has to take place. We have to educate the American public. We have to educate ourselves and our children especially, so that we can continue to grow as a community and make the strides through economic solvency and being part of the political process here in this country. All of those things are necessary for Islam to really take root and continue to flourish.
For those who are non-Muslims, if I was to ask you to say, in a very paraphrased way, something about Islam and how to understand it, what would you say? What would be your message to them?
Well, I would tell a non-Muslim that a Muslim is a person who believes in the natural, peaceful order of the universe as Allah created it, and someone who tries to continue that process. And those Muslims who don't do that are not practicing Islam. And we have to make that plain because people will always get the two confused. I was raised as a Roman Catholic among Irish Roman Catholics, and I know that the IRA does not speak for the Irish community. They're a very small group in there, but they've created a lot of destruction and chaos. Fortunately, now we're seeing a turn away from that, but people have to understand what's going on. It's the same thing with Islam.
Yes. What you, as I do, you probably have to access the Quranic translation or English translation of the Quran.
Yes.
Do you follow a particular translation, or do you have any preference for any?
I took a semester of Arabic, just so I could read in Arabic, and I understand enough of the grammar to understand how the language works. But I like the Yusuf Ali and Pickthall. I think Pickthall, his mastery of English really comes across. He really uses the best words in English to translate from the Arabic. On the other hand, Yusuf Ali is a great scholar and understands the depth of the Quran, and his notes are really good, especially for Muslims who are not grounded in the language and everything.
So the common for anyone, for any Muslim or non-Muslim to understand, then you think that reading the Quran and trying to sort of understand it is the vital first step, or?
For me, the vital first step was reading a history of the life of the Prophet.
Which one did you read? For Haeckel's or?
Geez, I don't even know.
I remember.
It was printed in Pakistan, that's all I know.
See, yes.
The life of the Prophet and his companions really made me understand what Islam was all about. From that point, I could go to the Quran, but to see what happened in human terms and what really the issues were, and the whole miracle of the Quran, an illiterate man coming out with this great work of literature is truly a miracle. And when you can see it in those terms, everything, for me anyway, is very clear.
Yeah. What do you think is the priority for us as human beings these days, when we live in this society where there is such corrosion of universal values? What feelings do you have on that?
Well, I think Muslims have to make a statement with their lives. They have to show what it's like to live a different way, and to make the choices that Muslims should make, and let the world see how that affects their lives. It's the only way that anyone can make statements that people will appreciate and take to heart.
Now you're into production, and you're doing something for the kids. Actually, the kids really are the endangered species these days.
Certainly, yes.
What sort of an effort is that? Would you want to elaborate?
Well, I have a program that we do here in the Los Angeles school system called Kareem's Kids, and we encourage the kids to stay in school, stay out of gangs, do their homework, and attend school regularly. I just go and give them little trinkets, basically, pencil boxes, caps, and T-shirts and stuff, and a certificate. But it's really having a pretty good effect on kids, just showing them that there is value in education, and it's something that they should pursue.
What message do you have for the kids about drugs, about the whole issue of the social trauma they are going through,
Well,
gangs and...
Social trauma can affect you in a very negative way, or you can insulate yourself from it, but you have to know how. We try to give them the tools to avoid the negative effects of the social traumas and to move themselves in a direction where they won't be affected by it. And they have to be able to see that it works. They have to be able to have faith in what you tell them. Mm-hmm. So I try to bring as much credibility to it as I can. I'm a college graduate, and I'm also someone who has been a very successful professional athlete. So because of those things, they can listen to me and get some good direction.
Was there ever a time for you during your college or your school days that either you were, you had to make a choice to use or not to use drugs and all of that?
Oh, certainly. And at first, you know, I, like a lot of other people, I failed. You know, I experimented with them, but I realized that my health, both mental and physical, depended on me doing the right thing, and I made the right choices.
Wonderful. Now, media is the most powerful tool which shapes the consciousness of everyone, right from you know, the toddler days. What do you think you as a producer ought to be doing to create the awareness of social issues and social themes?
Well, I feel that in my production company we can give stories that show people that the human spirit can triumph over all of these negative issues. And I try to make that very, very clear. The story that we did on Vernon Johns, he was a mentor of Dr. King, and he was a very courageous man, and when he was trying to do his thing, no one knew about it. He was working alone in the darkness. And it only takes you know, one candle to dispel the darkness and create a movement. So that's the type of thing that I hope to be able to communicate with the public.
Would you be thinking of doing something from an Islamic perspective, or?
I would like to, but you know, that would take the whole process of getting the right money and the right script and the right actors, etc., to do it the right way.
Yes.
But there's a whole lot of stories there that haven't even been touched. I saw one good story where a Muslim was portrayed as a positive person.
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood, of course,
Right.
but there was one, The Wind and the Lion, Sean Connery.
Yes, Sean Connery.
And you could see that Sean Connery was an enlightened man and not some type of thug.
Yes.
And I was happy to see that you know, at least they could view Muslims in that light. We need more of that.
Yes. Yes, obviously. And you think that for Muslims in this country especially to present their viewpoint, television, movies?
I think the written word up to the advent of television was the way to communicate. Now television and movies now have enhanced what happens from the written word. You get things on the little and the big screen. And we have to be able to use all the mediums of communication to speak what we need to have spoken.
Do you get any chance to see our program? Occasionally you said that you did.
Oh, yes, I see a program on public access, and sometimes I watch, sometimes I don't, but I'm always happy to see it, and I was surprised when I've traveled to see it in other cities. I'm glad you've got some outreach going.
I thank you for being with us, and inshallah we'll see some more, and hopefully one day we'll have you host a program.
Inshallah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On behalf of the Islamic Information Service, this is J.D. Hall thanking you for joining us this week, and please join us next week for Islam.